The Earth Council base was quiet that morning. Soldiers stood in perfect lines. Flags of many nations waved gently in the wind. Reporters waited behind barriers, cameras ready. Everyone was looking at the sky. Above, a huge alien ship slowly lowered from the clouds. Its surface was shiny like black glass. Strange blue symbols moved across its body. The engines made no sound, but people could feel a deep vibration in their bones. Commander Jack Rourke stood at the front. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. He had seen war. He had seen fear. But this was different. Today, Earth was not at war. Today, they were welcoming her. The ship landed. A ramp slid open with a soft hiss. Light spilled out, and from the brightness walked a tall, silver-skinned figure. Her walk was slow, proud, like she was royalty. Long black robes flowed behind her. Her eyes glowed softly, a bright alien green. This was Velis of the Krainari Empire, the most powerful alien diplomat in the galaxy. Her race believed they were the oldest and smartest beings alive, and Velis believed she was better than all of them. She didn't look around. She didn't smile. Instead, she looked at Earth's soldiers like they were insects under her shoe. A human officer stepped forward, holding out his hand with a polite smile. "Welcome to Earth, Honorable Velis." She stopped, looked at the hand, then slowly, without touching it, turned her back and walked away. Gasps echoed across the field. Commander Jack watched. His expression didn't change, but his fingers curled slightly. Velis walked straight past the council members and stood in the middle of the Earth platform. She looked at the Earth flag and narrowed her eyes. "A simple design," she said loudly. "Just like your species." Some laughed nervously. Others looked angry, but no one dared speak. "Not yet." Jack stepped forward, standing beside her. "We hope you find our world peaceful," he said calmly. She turned her head slowly. "I find it small. Your cities are loud, your air is heavy, and your people primitive." Jack didn't answer. He just nodded once. "Then we'll do our best to learn from you." Velis smirked. "That would take thousands of years," reporters whispered. Cameras clicked. Inside the council hall, Earth had prepared a table for the diplomatic meeting. Food from many cultures was placed on a long glass table, meant as a welcome gesture. But when Velis entered, she stopped at the door. She sniffed, once then covered her face. "This smell," she said coldly, "is poison." A young woman from Earth's team stepped forward. "It's just spiced rice, Your Highness. No animal products. All clean." Velis tilted her head. "Then you're clean as filth," she waved her hand. Her own servants came in carrying strange glowing cubes. They placed them gently on the table. One of the cubes moved and melted into a drink. She took a sip, then said, "Now this is real nourishment." The Earth representatives exchanged glances. Commander Jack sat down at the end of the table. He hadn't said much. He had seen beings like her before, on other missions. Always proud, always loud, and always blind to the storm coming. Velis spoke for 20 minutes. In that time, she insulted Earth's past, mocked their technology, and laughed at their defense systems. "You build walls around your cities," she said amused. "We build planets that move. You use guns. We use thought. You ride machines. We ride light." People began to shift in their seats. Some looked down. Some clenched their fists. But Jack? He just watched. Then a junior officer, a young man named Mark, stood up. "With respect," he said carefully, "we have learned a lot in a short time. Earth may not be perfect, but—" Velis cut him off. "Silence, child. Do not speak when minds are talking." The room went still. Mark sat down, red-faced, angry, ashamed. Jack leaned forward slightly. "That's enough for today. We will continue tomorrow," Velis smiled. "As you wish, little commander." She walked out, robes flowing, head high. Outside, as the sun began to set, Jack remained in the hall, alone. He stared at the chair where Velis had sat, then looked at the Earth flag. She thinks we're small, he whispered to himself. Let her keep thinking that, because deep inside, Jack knew something she didn't. Earth never fights fair, but it always fights to win. The next morning, the war room of Earth's Unified Council was filled with quiet tension. High-ranking officials, military leaders, and scientists sat around a large circular table made of black stone. A glowing world map hovered above the center, displaying all the Earth's bases, satellites, and fleets in orbit. Commander Jack Rourke stood near the edge, arms crossed. He wasn't just there to listen, he was there to observe and remember. Suddenly the doors slid open. Everyone turned. Velis entered, gliding across the floor like she owned the building. Today, she wore a new robe, deep red and gold, covered in alien symbols. Her chin was slightly raised. Behind her, 3 Krynari guards stood silently. Their armor was sharp and shining, their eyes scanning the room like predators. She didn't greet anyone. She didn't even sit down. Instead, she walked up to the holographic map and waved her hand. The map changed. Earth's defense systems vanished, replaced by Krynari fleets and cities. This, she said coldly, is how real power looks. No one spoke. She turned slowly. Your systems are weak. Your weapons are old. And your leaders. She scanned the humans in the room with disgust. Still think in 2 dimensions. Jack spoke calmly. We fight the way we live. On the ground. In the mud. Where it counts. Velis laughed softly. Yes. I smelled your mud yesterday. Some of the Earth delegates chuckled awkwardly, trying to keep the mood light. But the atmosphere in the room was starting to crack. Then she walked to one of the walls, where Earth had proudly displayed portraits of its greatest heroes, people who fought for peace, equality, and survival. She paused in front of a painting. It showed a human woman standing in front of a burning city, holding a child in one arm and a weapon in the other. Velis tilted her head. Is this a leader, or a savage protecting her cave? A murmur spread across the room. Commander Jack's eyes narrowed. That's Commander Laura Chen, he said. She saved over 300,000 lives when New Asia fell during the solar riots, Velis smirked. With violence, I'm sure. Jack's voice turned cold. With sacrifice. The Krynari diplomat walked away unimpressed. She returned to the table and looked down at the human-made map, now flickering faintly in the air. This tool of yours, she said, tapping it with a long metal finger, has no predictive engine, no live war simulations. It's like watching stars with closed eyes. Then she looked directly at Jack. You are brave, Commander Rourke, but bravery is just ignorance wrapped in muscle. Jack walked to the table slowly. He didn't blink. He didn't look away. He touched the edge of the hologram and, with a flick, changed the view. The new display showed a simulation, one the humans had designed overnight based on Krynari war records. It showed a Krynari fleet moving into Earth's orbit. Then it showed what Jack's team would do in response. Guerrilla tactics, AI-controlled satellites, hidden plasma mines, solar flare weapons. The simulation ran in real time, and in less than 90 seconds, the alien fleet was destroyed. Silence. Velis frowned. A trick, Jack shrugged. No tricks, just data and dirty strategy. She looked at the simulation again, more closely this time. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't elegant, but it was smart. I see, she said. So you use shadows, not light. Jack stepped closer. We use whatever keeps us alive. For the first time, her voice lowered. You think you can fight us? No, Jack said. We think you shouldn't want us to. There it was. Pause. A shift. Velis stood still for a moment. Then, without another word, she walked out of the room, her guards following closely behind. The humans remained silent until the door shut. Then someone whispered, Did we just scare her? Jack didn't smile. He didn't boast. He simply said, "We reminded her that Earth isn't here to kneel." The next day began with a strange tension in the air. The sky above Earth's unified council base was unusually clear, as if the clouds themselves were waiting for something to happen. Inside the council chambers, a quiet hum buzzed through the halls. Whispers, footsteps, rumors. Everyone had seen what happened yesterday. Everyone had seen how Commander Jack Rourke didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply showed Velis the truth, with numbers and silence. And now, something unexpected was happening. The Krynari sent a request. Velis wanted to attend Earth's military training center. It wasn't normal. Diplomats rarely visited those places, but Jack approved it instantly. Inside the large glass dome of Earth's training center, soldiers were running drills. Holographic terrains shifted around them. Deserts, jungles, zero-gravity battlefields. Velis entered quietly, surrounded by her silent guards. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. But her presence was like a cold wind through a room full of fire. Jack met her near the strategy table. "Curious about how we train?" he asked, voice calm. Velis didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked at the live simulation screens. Humans were struggling against a training AI, a difficult scenario, with surprise attacks and limited supplies. "Chaotic," she said softly. "You let your soldiers suffer." Jack nodded. "That's how they learn." Then he turned to her. "Would you like to try?" The room froze. Velis blinked. "You're challenging me." "Not a challenge," Jack said. "An exchange of ideas, our scenario versus yours." Her lips curled into a cruel smile. "Very well. Show me your little game, Commander." Jack turned to the system technician. "Run Simulation 43A, Observer Control Access, Velis of Krynari." Velis stepped forward, hands behind her back, and took control. A battlefield unfolded on the screen. Desert terrain, human outposts scattered, limited power, civilian evac zones. Velis deployed her digital forces, precision fleets, airstrike, drones, groundwalkers. She used Krynari tactics, fast, sharp, overwhelming. In the first phase, the human forces were pushed back. Half the outposts fell. A smile touched her lips. But then, something shifted. From the cliffs, Jack's side released mining drones carrying explosives. From the mountains, 3 squads used smoke and fake distress signals to bait her air units. Suddenly, her walkers were surrounded in a sand trap. Her drones were blinded by light-reflecting mirrors. Her precision fleets were dragged into narrow canyons and ambushed from both sides. The simulation calculated each move. After 9 minutes, the results came in. Human victory. Krynari forces destroyed. Civilian zones secured. Losses minimal. Velis stared at the screen. She tried to speak, then stopped. Jack stepped beside her. "We study your history, your battles, your pride," he said quietly. "But we don't try to copy you. We fight with desperation, because we know what it means to lose everything." She turned to him, voice sharp. "That was only a simulation." Jack leaned in just slightly. "So was yours. Let's try yours next." Now it was her turn to show what Krynari war looked like. She created a new battlefield, her homeworld terrain. Gravity shifts, skybound weaponry, ancient defense towers, everything elegant, everything perfect. She deployed her forces with pride. Jack didn't speak. He simply watched, then selected his units. Small, mobile, not beautiful at all. The simulation began. For several minutes, it looked like Earth's forces were failing. They moved awkwardly across the floating platforms. They hid in shadows. They even abandoned certain zones. But then, they struck. One human soldier, just a digital ghost, used a thermal bomb to collapse a floating island. Another used a power surge to confuse the sky weapons. Suddenly, Velus's towers began firing on each other. By the end, Earth had taken her city without losing its core team. Simulation result: human forces win. Velus took a step back. No one laughed. No one clapped. The silence was louder than any cheer. She stared at the screen for a long time. Her fingers twitched. Then in a low voice she said, "You fight dirty." Jack finally smiled. "That's how we survived." She looked at him, really looked at him, and in that moment something changed in her eyes. Not respect, not yet, but curiosity. That evening, the halls of the Earth Council base were quieter than usual. No training, no press, no formal greetings. The sunset cast long orange shadows across the steel floors, painting the windows in gold. But not all was calm. Behind a closed doctor in the guest chambers assigned to the Krainari, the sound of breaking glass echoed out. Valise stood in the center of her room. Her robes were torn at one shoulder, and her glowing eyes blazed brighter than ever before. A shattered holographic console sparked on the floor. The images of her two failed simulations flickered before fading out completely. She was furious. She paced like a caged animal, sharp steps echoing off the walls. Her assistants and guards stood at a distance, heads lowered. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe too loudly. "I am a high-born diplomat of the Krainari Corps," she hissed. "Not some training doll for Earth's entertainment." One of her aides gently tried to speak. "Perhaps it was a trick, my lady. Perhaps their data—" "Silence," she snapped, and the room went cold. She gripped the edge of a glowing table and squeezed. The surface bent beneath her hand, creaking with stress. "I let a primitive humiliate me in front of my own kind." She stared into the window. Outside, Earth soldiers walked past, laughing, talking, free, confident. It made her stomach turn, and then her door beeped. She froze. "Who dares?" The door slid open. Commander Jack Rourke stood there, no guards, no translator, no armor, just him in a plain black jacket and a calm face. "I thought now might be a good time to talk," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "You're bold. Walking into my space after what you did." Jack stepped inside without asking. The door closed behind him. "What I did," he said slowly, "was play fair. You just didn't expect us to win." Her jaw tightened. "You set me up. You tricked me." "No," he said. "You underestimated us. That's the difference." Velus turned away, trying to hide the heat in her face. "Your kind thrives on chaos." Jack stepped to the window and looked out. "Yes, because that's what we've lived in for thousands of years." He turned to face her, arms crossed. "You think power comes from clean lines and control. We think it comes from pain. From being knocked down. From clawing back up with broken hands." She said nothing. Jack took a step closer. "Do you know why I let you run your simulation first?" he asked. Velus blinked. "Why?" "To show you that we don't fear your strength, and more importantly, to show your people what happens when someone leads with pride instead of wisdom," she hissed. "They still follow me." "For now," Jack said. "But they watched you lose twice. They saw your mask slip. And now, they'll start wondering." Silence fell between them. Then softly she asked, "Why didn't you destroy me in public? Why not humiliate me fully?" Jack's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because that's not who we are." He turned to leave. Just before the door opened, he paused. Without looking back, he said, "You can still lead, but not from above, from beside." And then he was gone. Velus stood frozen, eyes wide. Her breath was unsteady. That night, she didn't call her guards. She didn't break anything else. She just sat by the window and stared at the stars. Not in pride this time, but in silence and in thought. Night fell over the Earth Council base like a heavy curtain. The stars above twinkled peacefully, but the ground below held shadows no one noticed, except one man. Commander Jack Rourke didn't sleep much anymore. He never had. Not since the Orion conflicts. War had taught him to listen for footsteps in silence, to trust the strange feeling in his chest when something wasn't right. Tonight, that feeling returned. A silent alarm blinked on his tablet. Unauthorized. Access inside a restricted wing of the base. Not a violent breach, no forced entry, just a slow, careful tampering. Like someone was sneaking in not to attack, but to plant something. He moved quickly, but quietly. No sirens, no backup. If he was right, panic would be worse than silence. Down the west corridor, past the dim lights and sleeping servers, he turned a corner and stopped. There she was. Velis, alone. She stood in front of the Earth Defense Terminal, one of the most protected data cores on the base. Her fingers moved fast, shadows dancing across her metallic cuffs. Small wires reached from her sleeve into the access port. She didn't notice Jack yet. She was too focused. Jack didn't shout. He didn't raise a weapon. Instead, he spoke. I had a feeling you couldn't leave it alone. She froze. Her head turned slowly, glowing eyes wide, but not with fear, with frustration. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Jack took a few steps forward. Neither should you. The hallway was cold and quiet. No one else was there, only them. You were trying to steal military codes? Jack asked. Sabotage our fleet? No, she said firmly. I was trying to make sure your systems weren't a threat to us. He tilted his head. By planting a Krynari command trigger? She looked away. He took another step closer. You're lucky I came alone, he said. If this went public, your mission would be over. Earth would declare you hostile. Her jaw tightened. You people are dangerous. We are, he admitted. Because we don't hide behind titles or robes. Jack reached into his jacket, not for a weapon but for a small cube. He placed it on the floor and activated it. A glowing circle surrounded them both, silencing the sound, hiding them from cameras. Why are you really doing this? He asked. She didn't answer. He tried again, softer now. You came here to make us kneel, but now you're trying to control us. Why? Velis slowly pulled the wire from the terminal. Her voice lowered. Because your people are unpredictable. You have no order. You fight like wild animals, and yet you win. Jack nodded. You fear that. No, she whispered, but her eyes betrayed her. I fear what we've become. My people have lived too long in comfort, in pride. We've forgotten how to survive without control. She stepped closer. You haven't. For the first time, she sounded almost unsure. Jack looked into her eyes. You could have just asked. We don't share everything, but we share respect. She looked down. Krynari don't ask. We take. Jack turned off the silence field. No, he said. You used to. He stepped aside and nodded toward the exit. Go. I'll erase the logs. No one needs to know. Velis blinked. Why? Because I don't want to see you fall, Jack said. I want to see if you can rise. She stared at him. Her lips parted as if to argue. But then, she didn't. She turned and walked out of the hall. Jack stayed behind, alone with the shadows. He looked at the terminal, then whispered, Let's see who you really become now. The next day began differently. There were no loud announcements, no marching troops, no alien music echoing through the halls. Just silence, and a quiet message sent across hundreds of systems. The Krynari Council had seen everything. They see simulation failures, the loss of strategic control, and now the silent proof, undeniable and secret, that their diplomat, Velis, had tried to interfere with Earth's security systems. They didn't rage. They didn't attack. They responded. In the only way that truly wounded her, they voted to remove her. A single message blinked on her device. Your station has been retired. Return home immediately. The moment she read it, something inside her broke. She stood in her quarters, completely still. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands trembled. Her guards, once standing proudly beside her, looked away now. They felt her shame like a heavy wind pressing down. Outside her door, 2 human officers waited to escort her, not as enemies but as part of protocol. Quiet, polite, respectful. She didn't resist. She simply followed. Down the long hallway, past the flags of Earth, past the glass walls where humans trained, laughed, and built machines she once called toys. Now she could see something else in them, will. Something her own people had traded for pride. The hallway ended at the council chamber. The same room where she had mocked their heroes, laughed at their food, ignored their kindness. But now, the chamber was full. Not just humans. Alien diplomats from many worlds, media drones, advisors from the Krynari delegation, sent to collect. Her Jack Rourke stood at the center. She stepped into the room, and for the first time she didn't float. She didn't raise her chin. She walked like someone carrying a weight no one could see. Jack looked at her, eyes unreadable. The Krynari advisors spoke first. The Council thanks Earth for its patience. Diplomat Velis is no longer authorized to speak for the Empire. Gasps from some, silence from others. But no one interrupted. Velis stood tall, but her eyes didn't shine like before. She faced Jack. Everyone in the room expected her to speak in anger, to accuse or deny, but instead, she bowed. Not deep, not dramatic, but real. A simple nod of the head, a gesture her species considered only for equals. I was wrong, she said softly, voice echoing through the chamber. About your world, about your people, and about you, Commander. The room froze. Jack didn't smile. He just nodded. You weren't the first, he said, and you won't be the last. She stepped forward, gently removing the ambassador seal from her chest. She held it out, but Jack didn't take it. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, You came here as a voice for your people, but what you choose to say next, that will define who you really are. She blinked, unsure. Then he added, You don't need a title to lead. You just need courage. The Krynari officials looked uneasy. She must come with us. She has no authority now, but Jack raised a hand. She has one thing more valuable than rank. She has a lesson. Learn it. He looked back at Velis. Will you stay as a student? The room went quiet again. No one had ever said that to her. Not in her whole life. She hesitated, and then slowly, she nodded. I will learn, she said, voice low. From the species I once called beneath me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't grand. But it was real. And across the galaxy, when the transmission played, billions of beings saw something they never expected. Not Earth kneeling, but a proud alien, learning to stand. Again. 1 month later, the Earth Council base stood stronger than ever. New defense satellites floated above orbit. Joint training programs had begun between humans and several alien allies. Peace talks expanded. Communication lines that were once cold and formal were now open and alive with dialogue, and in the middle of it all, something quietly surprising happened. Velis returned. No ceremony, no great ship, just a small shared transport among others. No royal robes, only a simple black suit with a faint silver lining, clean, plain, respectful. She carried no seal, no command, no title, only purpose. Some people whispered when she arrived. Others watched from a distance, unsure whether to greet her. After all, last time she walked these halls, she walked like a queen. Today, she walked like one of them. Commander Jack Rourke stood waiting near the main plaza. He hadn't been told she was coming, but something told him she would. She approached him slowly. The wind moved gently through the courtyard trees, the Earth flag fluttering behind him. Jack didn't speak first. She did. Commander, she said. Not human. Not primitive. Just one word, and it mattered. Jack gave her a quiet nod. You came back. Velis looked up, her once glowing eyes now softer. Not to reclaim power, but to learn how to earn respect. Jack's expression didn't change, but something in his stance eased. That takes time. I have time, she replied. He turned and started walking. She followed beside him, not behind. As they moved through the base, something amazing began to happen. Soldiers saluted Jack as always, but this time a few nodded at Velis too. A technician smiled at her in passing. A young officer held a door open. She noticed. Every small gesture, every silent message. You didn't have to forgive me, she said quietly. Jack answered, forgiveness isn't given to make others feel better. It's given so we can move forward. They stopped at the edge of the training field. A simulation was running. Humans and Kraynari cadets fighting side by side, helping each other through a holographic canyon. I heard your council wants to replace you with someone more traditional, Jack said. Velis chuckled softly. Yes, someone with a louder voice and a colder heart. Jack looked at her. Then stay here. Use a different voice. She turned to him, curious. What do I become without a title? Jack gave a small smile. Maybe something new, maybe something better. She thought for a moment, then held out a small silver disc. This is my final command key. I don't want it anymore. He took it and placed it into a security locker nearby without hesitation. No turning back now, he said. She looked at him, no longer with pride, but with clarity. You taught me something, Jack Rourke. You taught me that strength doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it simply refuses to bow. He raised his eyebrows. Sounds like you're starting to think like us. She smiled faintly. Or maybe starting to understand you. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the courtyard, but there was no darkness in the air. Only light, only change. And as they stood together, one born from stars, the other forged from Earth's broken soil, there was no more war between them. Only a story. A story of a proud diplomat who came to dominate, and left with something far more powerful. Humility, understanding, and respect.